Hey friends, Ernie here, and it is another episode of 0 Days to Expiration. This is episode number 71. And today, what we're going to be talking about is something that never happens, except that when it does. So today we're going to talk about that, and I have a special guest on, and that guest is Don Harold. How you doing, Don?
Doing good, Ernie. How are you?
I'm doing just fabulous. It's another 0DTE day, and today is like the day after a romp in the market. I think it was something like 150 points down. Is that right, Don?
Well, from the highs yesterday, the move to the lows, we're really right at the lows right now, almost, is a move of about 170 points on the S&P futures.
Yeah, that's just unbelievable. Well, in the normal parlance of things, if you were going to go back maybe a few months, we were getting 30 to 80 to 100-point moves on a daily basis, but volatility had retracted for a while, so this actually pushed volatility back up into what I call the Goldilocks zone again. So maybe we'll have this kind of movement for a little while sustained, which would be good for traders, because I hate that low volatility stuff. But this came out of left field, and compared to where we were before with these sort of subdued moves, very low volatility, this was actually a 3 standard deviation move. In other words, it was 3 times greater than your normal move.
Yeah. Well, on the week, this is the biggest move on a week since all the way back in, let's see, the week of March of 2020. So this is what we just saw this week was the biggest move since that crazy time back when coronavirus was first hitting. Pretty crazy.
Wow. I didn't realize it went that far back.
On a percent basis, it's not as bad because that was back at S&P 3000. But on a nominal basis, the move from high to low has been extraordinary.
Wow. Quite frankly, it wasn't really expected by me. I don't think it's expected by anybody. Let me just talk about this whole idea of it never happens except for when it does. Normally, when I put a 0DTE trade on, the whole premise is to take very tiny little risks with large potential profit, an asymmetric trade. That's all well and good. The last couple of weeks have been dry in terms of returns. And so I figured, okay, why don't I put on a non-zero DTE day trade? In other words, it was going to be 4 or 5 days out. And I'll put the risk really far away so that I can hopefully collect a guaranteed, quote, guaranteed profit with very little chance of it ever hitting that risk zone.
What day was that you did that? Was it I think it was last Sunday or Friday? When was that?
Yeah, I think it was on Sunday that I put the trade on. And it was supposed to expire today.
That's about S&P 4650, roughly.
Yeah, and everything was working fine. We were going great. Even up until yesterday, we were okay. For a period of time anyways. Where it was going to be a guaranteed profit, no problem. Not coming anywhere close to the risk side of the trade. And then all of a sudden, whammo, the thing that never happens actually happened. I put my risk 3 standard deviations out, and the move was about 3.5 standard deviations. So now a 3.5 or a 3 standard deviation move, that's under 1%. Which makes sense when you're talking about it not happening since March of 2020. How many trading days are between there? There's got to be, 300-something trading days?
Well, no, it's probably 500, almost 500 trading days.
All right. So if this was the biggest move in 500 trading days, that's definitely even less than a 1% move.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, so, and we talked about this yesterday, you and I did, and I also talked to folks privately about this. The move yesterday, my intuition wouldn't have said short. I would not have said, based on my reading of anything, hey, it's going to be a good day to short. The move there at the close was unbelievable. The last 1 hour bar in the day was a move down of 70 points in an hour. And most of that just, you and I were watching it, excuse me, just every 5-minute bar, down, down, down. And I don't think anyone expected that.
Yeah, so think about this. I decide to put on a super low probability trade. Now, with super low probability trades and options, that usually implies then a lot of risk. So the first time I put on a super low probability trade in about a year, this week, and I put it on one time thinking, okay, this never happens. And the one time that I put it on, I get burned. Now, I talk about this all the time, Don. Most other people that are doing these zero DTE trades, they're doing these on a regular basis with high probability trades with huge risk and small potential profit. And I say, look, yeah, you can put a 5% probability trade on and think that you're not going to get hit, but 1 out of every 20 times you're going to get hit. And it's going to wipe out all your profits. Why do that? And so I profess doing asymmetric trades where you take very little risk and go for big profit. That way you're never in peril. And yet this one time where I thought, okay, having a little dry spell, not really turning over the trades like we normally do it, like 70% of the time, a couple of weeks, bad weeks. So I said, what's the harm in putting in a small little trade with high probability profit? I'll put it so far out that there's no chance it will ever hit. And it did.
Well, I with my kids, there's a thing that my kids have said for years. They don't say as much as they used to. In fact, COVID has stopped a lot of what I'm about to tell you. But before COVID, before anything significant ever happened in their lives, one of the most common phrases I heard was, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. So, for example, if I said, hey, you might want to wear a helmet when you're riding a skateboard at midnight, a motorized skateboard at midnight, on roads that aren't smooth and they have pebbles and rocks all over the place and your buddy's behind you on a dirt bike, you might want to wear a helmet and pads. And my oldest son very famously said to me, he said, well, who's the expert skateboarder? And I said, well, I don't know anything about that. What I know is the risk of you having a fall at midnight with no helmet and pads on a motorized skateboard, it's higher than you think, and the damage that can be done is greater than you think. So put on a helmet and pads. And of course, my son laughed at me. And about 20 minutes into that evening, I got a phone call from a friend of his who said, listen, your son is bleeding out here. The emergency folks are on the way. He's unconscious. And so that was a scary evening. This was ironic. We're having this discussion, you and I, because he said to me a couple days ago, but by the way, I hope he doesn't hear us talking about this because he'll never own up to anything ever again. But he told me a couple of days ago, he said, that was really dumb. I shouldn't have done it. Now, that was 3 or 4 years ago. He's grown. But that whole idea of that'll never happen, every time I hear someone say that, I just think, no, not only can it happen, but you have to plan accordingly. And I want to say about your trade, because I think people listening, I think are getting maybe the wrong idea. I don't know, because I didn't have a problem with the trade. It was the position sizing, I think, that was the issue. And I know that you said, well, you shouldn't have taken the trade, but part of your business is making educated guesses on things. And so sometimes you're going to get things wrong. I just have an issue with the position sizing, because when you said this is that one time you did it, you've been following your own rules for so long or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden you pick this trade and it goes wrong. You've actually had way more trades that were wrong in the last couple of years, but none position size like this. And
that's right.
I just don't think that I think that you're looking too much at the trade and not the trader who made the trade, which is, by the way, in full disclosure, my problem as well. I don't lose money because of the bad trades. My bad trades are always when I break my rules and change position sizes, always. So, to that end, I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I just think that I don't have a problem with the trade. I do have a problem with the position size, but that's what I say about my own trading.
Well, you can't separate the position size from the trade, all right? When you put the trade on, you have to add, well, how big of a size that you're going to do. So regardless of that, doing an extra position size plus putting on this relatively risky trade, even though the risk seems like it's so far out that it shouldn't happen. It's almost like the universe is gravitating towards it actually happening. You never do this, Ernie. So therefore, when you do it, we're going to get you. Now, the only
yeah, but I challenge you on that. Well, why do you think the trade was high risk? I would say that because when you and I first talked about it, you told me that you were looking at 150 points down or whatever it was, and that if it was within that zone, then it would have been crazy profitable, 8 times on your money or something like that.
That's correct.
You're going to throw darts and you're going to have some miss. I applaud the risk taking. People need to know I don't know anything about how you come up with your trades in terms of the butterflies and aluminum eagles and flying turtles, whatever they're called. I don't know anything about that. I'm always astounded because the risk reward always seems great. And in this case, I'm not going to let you off the hook. I don't have a problem with the trade. In hindsight, you can have a problem with it, but in the beginning, I understand the trade based on how you explained it to me. But you didn't tell me the position size you're taking.
It made perfect sense to me too, but it still deviated from the normal trade, the normal philosophy, the whole premise behind what I do. And so that's really the point that I'm trying to make. Will I do this again in the future? I hope not. But every time I say that...
But do what? Do what again in the future?
Well, deviate from the basic trade plan, right? The basic trade plan is take asymmetric trades, low risk, high potential profit.
Mm-hmm.
Don't deviate from that. And did these type of trades for more than a year,
mm-hmm.
and they're all great.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you have a series of losses, it doesn't hurt.
And by the way, people need to know that you and I talk privately all the time. And the one thing that I've said over and over to you privately is that the beauty of your system is you can have a string of losses in a row. It seems like you could lose 3 or 4 in a row and have one win, and you're at least back to square one because of the reward to risk that you take. I don't know why other people don't do what you're doing. You've shown me these other services. I don't get it. Why are they putting $1,000 out there to make 100? I don't understand it when what you're doing exists. Let's play alternate universe here for a second. Yesterday, when we were at 45, 80 or 90 or wherever it was at the highs yesterday, if it had cruised up, let's say 50 more points or whatever it was, would it have been a profitable trade at 4,600?
Yes.
So you just had to stay above a certain amount. Is that what it was?
That's right.
So in effect, the thing that happened, this crazy move that really doesn't really happen that often, that's the thing that you're talking about trying to avoid. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
But how can you avoid that?
Yeah, I don't, well, you don't put on that type of trade, I guess, for one. And look.
Wait, but when you say you don't, wait, hold on. Because I got to be clear what we're talking about. Forgive me. When you say that type of trade, do you mean the position size or do you mean the trade itself?
The whole totality of the trade. So not only was there low probability, big risks, which would have been manageable with the normal position size, but this was in combination, low probability, long tail risk with a larger position size.
Let me ask you this question. What if you had, instead of this options trade on there, what would it have been like if you had a couple E-mini contracts? But let's do it this way. Instead of 5 options contracts, you had 5 E-minis. That would be $250 a point. And that would be, what would that be? 30 grand in the hole? So your risk was mitigated.
In totality, Yeah. See, my whole point is in this podcast is that it's the deviation from what you normally do and what you do that you find success. Even when you're not finding success, you should keep on plugging on, because that's what happened with me. I had a couple of dry weeks and I wanted to make up for it.
Right.
I wanted to make up for it by putting on what I thought was an insurance trade that had really long tail risks that were so far out that I thought could never happen.
What is a long tail risk? You keep mentioning that, and I saw someone in your Discord room talking about that. What's a long tail risk?
So if you look at the normal bell curve, you have the big fat bell at the beginning, and then as it swoops down to the outer, further to the right or further to the left, the curve flares out.
Mm-hmm.
And the further out you go, those are considered the long tail risks.
Oh, so in other
They're
words,
smaller.
If it was most likely that you would see a market at, say, 40 to 550 or something, if that was the most likely scenario, then some unlikely scenarios would be at 4,800 or 4,400. And so the long tail risk would be at the 4,400 in this case.
That's correct.
Okay. Hey, I learned something.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's, see, the whole premise of what I'm doing here is to avoid even that. And I think that's possible. But
do you really think that's possible? Because it seems like if you do that, then don't you decrease the potential rewards? If you get closer to the middle of the bell curve, then by definition, don't you decrease your rewards there?
You do if you're thinking just statistically, and if that's the way you place your trades from a statistical point of view. But we don't. We develop a directional bias and use a little bit of technical analysis evaluating the volume profile. If you can combine that with the potential for making multiples of your entry, now you've got something. When you're hitting it right, you're doing okay. And even when you're not hitting it so right, you're still doing okay. Now, what happened to me was that it went to the extreme, the other extreme.
You can say that again. I'm not laughing at you. I'm just saying this is an extreme example of being outside the profit tent.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, you get so confident with your trading that over time you think that, hey, this could never happen. And then
you and I have talked about that too. You've told me that. And I even told you recently, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I told you that every single time I place a trade, I always assume I'm wrong. Like every time. I'm never like, oh, I'm going to make money with this. I'm essentially a pretty pessimistic person in that regard. And you've always been very optimistic in that way. Do you think that maybe you're a little bit too optimistic and maybe I'm a little bit too negative? I don't know.
I don't know that comes into play. I think it really comes down to deviating that one time from what you normally do. You think that you can get away from that one little faux pas that you're going to make in your strategy. Now, there may be other times that you've done this or I've done this and you do get away with it. And so that builds false positive hope in you that you can continue to do that.
By the way, at this point in our discussion, what you just said, we could just wipe out everything that's been said to this point. That, to me, is the best thing. I hope you'll state that again and talk about that, because I think that is and listen, hold on. And when you're done talking about it, I'll give you some real-world examples from my life. But can you restate that again?
Yeah, when you do things that are outside of your plan and you know that they're wrong, but they work for you, you are more or less telling you that doing the wrong thing is okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing with fire. And then when it finally hits, you pay for it. And then you're devastated. You're wondering, how could that possibly happen? I've done this so many times. But the problem with that is that once you get rewarded for doing the bad thing over and over again, you tend to do the bad thing more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, it's going to catch up with you, even if it is a less than 1% probability of happening.
Yeah, as you grow older, as you become an adult, there's certain things you just got to do. And I'm talking about things like insurance and getting your tires rotated every so many miles, just things like that.
Sure.
And one of my sons said to me recently, he said, well, you told me to go out there and do this thing, and I didn't do it, and nothing happened, so you were wrong. And I said, no, I'm actually very right. And when it comes to trading, it is a key element in all of my horrific losses over the last 20 years that I would get rewarded or get myself out of a jam where you're underwater, you take another position, next thing you know, that's blowing up in your face again, and you're underwater, and you stick with it, not because you should, but because you're afraid to let go. And then there's that one time, it comes back, you break even, you walk away, and you go, oh, I'll never do that again. And until the next time you do it again. It's like the drunk who says, if I just wake up tomorrow, God, I'll never do this again. And to me, the thing you just brought up is the thing that's the hardest thing for me to wrap my mind around how to stop doing, and not just in trading, but in life. How do we...
Oh, yeah. I can give you an example in life that's affecting me right now, making it difficult for me to do this podcast because you notice I have a little cough. And that is the result of having acid reflux. And I know what gives me acid reflux, Don. Eating things that taste really good, full of carbs and sugar and crap like that. It provides me with a lot of satisfaction. It makes me feel good. Then I suffer from that. Then I have to take Prilosec for, this isn't a commercial for Prilosec, by the way, take Prilosec for the next few weeks, and then it resides. And then I'm good, and I've learned my lesson, and I get away from it. But then I'll do it again.
Dude, I know.
And it's that positive, the false positive input or feedback that you get from something that you know is wrong that keeps you doing it.
Yeah. You name the thing that you shouldn't do, and yet there's a dopamine hit when you do it. And somewhere in my life, I've probably done it, and I've been fortunate in that I've been able to break the shackles of some of that. Like, I don't smoke anymore. I haven't had a drink of alcohol in 31 years, something like that. I don't cheat on my wife.
Anymore,
right? No, I never cheated on my wife. I'm just saying, there's all these things that I look at in my life, and I think, why do I keep doing them? And the reason why is because you make the deal that the short-term dopamine is going to be worth the long-term consequence that maybe you won't have to face. Maybe this time you'll get lucky. I don't know how outside of prayer and a spiritual life that you people get away from that. Prayer, my walk with God, my wife, and also having kids, that keeps me grounded. Let me ask you this. If you had a trading partner or someone to put your ideas through, don't you think a partner might say to you, Ernie, maybe we shouldn't do that? Because I know if I had someone that was a partner of mine, I was like, maybe we shouldn't do that, I would give pause. Do you think that maybe part of the problem is trading is by its very nature a very solitary endeavor?
One of the things that can keep you accountable is by having somebody that might be there looking over your shoulder, a coach or a confidant or anything like that. That's one of the problems with being a solitary endeavor, is that if you don't have that coach with you, then you're much more likely to fall into that trap. It's very difficult to keep yourself accountable without the benefit of someone else tapping you on the shoulder every once in a while and saying, hey, looks like you're going on tilt there a little bit, or maybe you should back off.
But who is your coach, though? I mean, if they have a coach...
that's the problem. I don't have a coach. One thing that you think will help you keep there without the benefit of having a coach is through prayer and meditation. I'm not a real religious guy. I believe there's some higher being, but I also do something similar. I meditate and reflect on the things that I do. And I spend time with introspection and retrospection.
You walk a lot, and I noticed you mentioned yesterday that you were going to go walk and think some things over, and then you did. And that's a form of meditation, and you can pray in that way while you're walking.
That's a practice. When you're doing that, you don't just do it and reinforce the things that are bringing you down. You have to have some sort of guideline or path that you follow. Now, in a religious endeavor, you have these edicts and rules. I don't know if they're rules or guidelines that you follow that help you become or stay a moral and righteous person. In Buddhism, for instance, they have something called the Eightfold Path: right thinking, right speech, right mind, right thought, right mindfulness. You have all these things that you concentrate on. So it's all the same, some kind of methodology that centers you and detaches you from your actions and reflect on the path that you want to go down.
This is probably going to sound like Traders Anonymous here or something like that. I'm not a professional trader. You're way more of a professional trader than I am, but I'm a rational, balanced adult. To me, these are all issues that as an adult you face through life. These questions about self-control and self-discipline and all that.
I think those two things are really good points, though, in terms of keeping yourself on that path. One is having the benefit of a coach. That really helps. But if you don't have that, then, and even if you do have that, you need some other mechanism or some other practice, whether it's your faith or whether it's a path of meditation or whatever that is, to help you center yourself and help you detach yourself from the decisions that you make and reflect what you know is the good path and compare that to where you went and try to reconcile that. I think that's important for people to do that, to maybe even a daily mantra or a daily thought process. You can do it during a walk. Now, I do it in two different instances. I do it on my daily walk, which is about an hour and a half walk I take on the trails with my dogs. I also do it in my office. I have a pool table.
That's right. And lots of times when I'm talking with you, I hear pool balls clanking around in the background.
Yeah. So I call that my pool meditation. So I have the walking meditation and I have the pool meditation. I can focus on one thing in order to keep your mind right. And it's not just trading. It's just about anything that you do. Keeping your mind right, whether it's a vocation or your work or your family, all those things require you to have certain concentration so that you can become the person that you want to be and the one that you hope to be for others. I didn't think this conversation would go that way, by the way.
Yeah, it did. So at 44.09, we're down almost 90 from the highs, probably an okay time to get in. I think it will, before the day is over with, turn out to be that way. But I'm always early. And so what I want to do now is I want to take another position right now. I really do. At 43.90.
Right. Here's your coach talking to you, Don. Don't do it.
Don't do it? Okay, I won't.
Walk away. It's Friday, you know?
Yeah, that's true. It's Friday, last hour of the day. So instead of me taking a trade, I'll just enjoy what I have and see where the day goes. And actually, not that this matters because people will hear this after the market closes, I guess.
Well, what I'm going to be doing after this market is closed is going on my daily walk. I will be completely divorcing myself from the market.
Good.
And when I get back, I'll probably shoot a few racks of pool, have dinner, and then watch some movies.
Okay. Wow, look at this thing, man. 43.93? Wow.
That's crazy.
Well, the good news for you is it's all over. And I'm being very serious when I say this, that a lot of decisions people think they've got a choice in life, there's no choice for you to make right now. It's out of your hands. You've been freed from that. So just enjoy your weekend, right?
That's the tough part for some people, and that's letting go. And that's probably the most important part. You can't have those attachments. You can't hang on to the failures that you've had or the strife or the anguish or any of that. That's the principal cause of people suffering, long-term suffering and deterioration in their spirit, right? You have to let things go. You need another release. You need a way to detach yourself from all of that. And you're right, like you were saying, why go into another trade right now? That's it. Deal's over. Weekend's here. Detach yourself and then live.
Okay. Hey, this was fun, Ernie.
All right, Don. Thanks for joining me and helping me do this.
You can't control the crazy market. By the way, I'm up. Hey, I'm almost at a break even. Uh-oh. Keep going.
I'm telling you, there's 45 minutes left.
I'm only 3 points away from break even. Come on, let's go. 43.98.
We'll have to let people guess what happens after this.
Okay, they can just guess what happens. If you see my resume on Indeed.com later this evening, you'll know what happened.
Right. All right, Don. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. I
Yeah,
hope you have a
man.
great weekend.